So, Bruce, tell me about your new book.
Yes, Luke. Well, I'm really excited to be talking with you. My new book is titled, it's a biography, and it's titled Korzybski, a biography. Korzybski is, for those listening who are interested, is spelled Korzybski. I give it the Polish pronunciation, Korzybski, but many people just say Korzybski. And he was a very interesting figure who's mainly in the 20th century, when he was operating, working in a very broad field of the sciences. He was what I like to call an applied epistemologist. He was a man who was passionately interested in what the sciences of his time had to offer to help human beings get over the bottleneck of survival that they seemed to be going in, even in his time. He lived from 1879 till 1950. So it was the first half of basically the real latter part of the 19th century when he was growing up, and then the first half of the 20th century. He spent the first part of his life in the United States. He spent the first part of his life in Poland, where he was born, and then sort of in the pretty much midway through the course of World War I, he had been fighting in the Russian army in a special intelligence unit on the Eastern Front, which is basically the Eastern Front, at least the northern part of it, was Poland. That was the Eastern Front of the war. So he had spent a year under very difficult and dire circumstances under there, and then he had been sent by the Russian Artillery Commission to Canada and the United States to basically inspect artillery that was being supplied over here to the Russians, who were allies of the United States during World War I. At any rate, he decided after the war, he married an American woman, a very well known at her time portrait artist named Mira Edgerly. She was a U.S. citizen American. So he spent basically the rest of his life, he was 35 or 36 when he came over here, and he spent the rest of his life in the United States, basically, with one short trip to Poland, and then he died in 1950. So I'd been interested in his work for most of my life, and I was privileged at a certain point to get involved with the Institute of General Semantics, which he had founded, and which at the time that I got involved, about 1979, even actually a little bit further, and for the next pretty much 2 decades, I became very involved, and in a sense, you could say that I apprenticed myself under Korzybski's students and co-workers, and I became one of the co-workers at the time at the Institute. So you could say that I absorbed a lot of the tradition that was still there at the Institute at that time. And, people die and various things happen, organizations change, and I basically started to write the book, or decided to write the book in 2004 after Robert Pula, who was a friend and mentor of mine at the Institute. He was for many years the lead lecturer at their seminars, which they used to give. And I was very close, my wife and I were very close with Bob, who had been working on a biography of Korzybski for years. Korzybski died in 1950. He's had in his own way, even though a lot of people haven't heard about him, he's had quite a significant influence, although not as much as some of us would like. And it's surprising, always surprised me that nobody has really written. There's been a few studies written by various scholars who were not particularly students of Korzybski or enamored of his work, but basically there hasn't been a biography, which surprised me. So Bob had been working on this for years, and he died in 2004, and I felt that I had gotten a lot of the things that I picked up over the years. I knew many of Korzybski's close students and some of his really close co-workers, and I figured, this stuff is going to get lost, especially since the stream of whatever tradition seems to have died out at what's now the Institute of General Semantics. So I felt a rather big urgency that if a biography was going to be written the way it should be written, or the way I think it should be written, that I basically had to pick up the torch from Bob. So I decided that in sort of the middle of 2004, and for the next 7 years, I basically spent all of my time researching and writing the book, and it just came out just about a month ago. So
why does Korzybski matter?
Why does Korzybski matter? Well, let me just talk about a little bit about the circumstances in the world that many people now are beginning to perceive a little bit more clearly. We have this tremendous, you're recording this, we're talking over the telephone now, and this is being recorded in a particular digital conferencing system, and you are going to be manipulating the audio files of this on your computer to some degree, and then you're going to put it up on the internet for people to download and listen to this discussion that we're having. That's amazing. This is, since 1950, say, computerization was starting, and they had these huge digital computers in the late 40s and early 50s that literally filled a room and needed major amounts of electricity and cooling systems and whatnot to deal with all the heat that was being generated in rooms full of these huge machines, which I'm sure people have seen in old movies. And now you can buy a laptop that has much more computing power than that big brainiac machine from the early 1950s. And as a consequence of the computerization and the personal computers and then the digitization of just about everything, we have a situation now where individuals, the mass media has sort of been turned around, and individuals who were basically always thought of as consumers by those who broadcast various things for us, we're now in the situation where mass communication means that the masses are able to communicate to each other in a way that was simply not possible before. People can produce videos, people can produce podcasts, and if it's a compelling enough message, you have an ability to put it into the cyberspace, into the internet, and people from around the world can, listen to this conversation. And so what we have basically, I've been sort of tracing this development in communications and mass communications, but it's reflective of just the tremendous advances in science and technology that we're benefiting from.